Hey everyone, welcome to First Christian Church Online. We're so glad that you're here today. My name is Jordan and I'd love to connect with you. Want to encourage you today as you're watching the service to take a moment and reply to a chat, say hey to somebody in there. We'd love to connect with you. Also, you can always hop on over to Scottsburg.church. That's our website, and on there's an online connect card. And I personally would love to connect with you this week if you fill that out and let us know how we can walk with you. Like I said, great things today. It's going to be a great service. Thanks for being back with us. We're glad that you're here. Let's take a few moments here and worship God.
On a hill far away stood an old rugged cross, the emblem of suffering and shame. And I love that old cross where the dearest and best for a world of lost sinners was slain. So I'll cherish the old rugged cross till my trophies at last I lay down. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown. In the old rugged cross, stained with blood so divine, a wondrous beauty I see. For 'twas on that old cross Jesus suffered and died to pardon and sanctify me. And so I'll cherish the old rugged cross till my trophies at last I lay down. And I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown. To the old rugged cross I will ever be true, its shame and reproach gladly bear. And then he'll call me someday to a home far away, where his glory forever I'll share. So I'll cherish the old rugged cross till my trophies at last I lay down. And I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown.
Hey guys, welcome to First Christian Church Online, and I want to thank you for being here today. Right off the top, I just want to say to all of you who are preparing to be here tomorrow night at Trunk or Treat, we will be setting up at 5 o'clock. The parking lot will open up at 5 o'clock right here at our main campus. And so Trunk or Treat, if you haven't thought about it or you're thinking about it, bring your trunk, bring some candy, enough to hand out from 6 to 8, and we're going to share a little light into the world on tomorrow night, Monday night, the 31st. So today we're going to take a look at something that's been on my mind a lot, and I've preached on it, I've talked about it. We've tried at different times to do different initiatives to get it off the ground, but I want us to talk today about life together. It's one of our core values, pursuing life together. I truly do think it makes a difference when you and I can grasp this idea of community, of relationship. More so, I want us to see the importance of why we need to be involved in it and what we can do to take our next step. So, obviously, this weekend is Halloween weekend. We've been to the fall festivals at the school. We've seen different things take place. We actually saw some stuff started last week in different communities, and it's just amazing how this one holiday, people participate together. They come together, and it doesn't matter where we've lived in the United States. People come together for Halloween. Now, I know some folks don't participate in it, and that's fine, and there are good reasons to step away from it and not be a part of it. But I know that there's many opportunities for people, much like you, to bring the light into the darkness. And I hope that's what we can do tomorrow night at Trunk or Treat, right here from 6 to 8. I also know Halloween says something about our human nature, about our just being human, what it means to be human and what we do. No matter where we've lived, Farrah and I and the kids, we've lived in Colorado, we've lived in Ohio, we've had churches in Indiana and Kentucky and Colorado. We've had churches in Ohio. We've been all around, and it doesn't matter. Every place that we go, some truths come out at Halloween. And I want to share these truths about people. They're just truths about people, all right? Number one, people love free candy. It's true. People will sit through just about anything for free candy. They'll go to any length to get some free candy. Think about it. People will sit through 100-degree temperatures watching a fair parade, send their kids out in the street dodging traffic just to bring in some free candy. It's true. People love free candy. And I think Halloween candy is probably the best. Now, number two, what does Halloween say about people? People love to see kids have fun. People, young and old, truly do like it when kids have a smile on their face. And when you can be a part of putting a smile on a child's face, people love it. People love to have kids around that are laughing and smiling and doing all these things. And what better way to put a smile on a child's face? You guessed it, free candy. The third thing Halloween tells us about people is people will open their homes to perfect strangers. It doesn't matter. On Halloween, people will open their homes to Freddy Krueger, Jason, zombies, aliens, princesses, sports stars, comic book heroes, Captain America, Iron Man. People will open their homes to just about anybody on Halloween. Why? Because they love to see kids smile, and kids love free candy, and people love to make kids smile, so they hand out free candy. They will open their homes. Now, these things are true, and I'm being a little tongue-in-cheek here and just trying to have a little fun with it, but really these three things tell us a lot about who we are as people. I think that people love Halloween, they love the Super Bowl, they love Christmas. In general, I'm talking general here. There's obviously religious reasons why we love Christmas, and it's the birth of Jesus. There's There's fanatical reasons why we love the Super Bowl because it's a Super Bowl, but people really do just love getting together. That's who we are as people. We are meant to be together. We love to get together camping. I just saw somebody post that they're inviting everybody out to their campsite to watch a movie. What a great idea. Fantastic. And I hope it goes well for you. I do believe that people desperately also need this time together. We're not made to be isolated. We're not made to be alone. We are made to be in community and relationship with one another. You see, we want to be around our friends. We want to laugh. We want to help people go through what they're going through. Beyond the costumes at Halloween, people just love to get together. I've seen friends of mine dress up in the most wildest costumes just to go to a Halloween party. Is it the Halloween party? Is it fun? Sure, maybe. But it's really about the people. Why am I talking about this? Here's why. Because the church should be the best place to have relationships. And unfortunately, sometimes, maybe a lot of times, we fall short in that. I think there's a great need for us right now as a church, the First Christian Church, to look at Sunday school, to look at small groups, to look at groups that meet, and to expand our classes, our groups, to give more people opportunity to get together. That's the thing, right? But why? Why is it important? And what is there to say about this life together? Yes, I want more Sunday schools. Yes, I want more small groups. But we have to unpack some things first in order to get there, right? Because it's not just about Sunday school here at church. It's not just about small groups that meet here at church. It's about inviting people into your lives. I told the staff this the other day. The most off-limit place for most people is where? It's their homes. It's the place they go to retreat. It's the places that they go to get away. Most houses that are 100 years old have huge front porches. I remember as a kid, people would drive and walk through the community and say hello to their neighbors. Now people close their blinds and go inside and never speak to anyone. Maybe even not in themselves. Dwight Moody once said the difference between listening to a radio, watching a sermon, or going to church is almost like the difference between calling your girl on the phone and then spending an evening with her. What he means is listening to a radio sermon is not really spending time with church people. And here I am talking to people online, and I don't want to step on your toes, but I just want to call out to your heart today. I hope that you're not giving up on church, because I think there's something important that happens when we're able to come together as a body. And I know maybe some folks out there are still worried about their health issues, and that's fine. That's why we do this. We want to protect the vulnerable. We, however, don't want to make it easy or comfortable, because there is something that happens when we gather together and pray together and sing together. The church was designed to be a place where people gather and celebrate. It was a place where people could come together to see one another, to visit. Now, a lot of that has been replaced with different other kind of venues, places where people go and visit and sit and talk. And in a small town like this, we have lots of those opportunities. And I'm not saying any of them are bad, because we desperately need community. But I just don't want you to forget that this is God's community. This is the place where we can really maybe break down the walls Be honest with one another. Celebrate with one another. Carry one another's burdens. See, the church is designed for people to gather together and do life together. It's a place to listen, to gather support. It's a gathering to pray for each other. It's a gathering to love God and to love our neighbor. And yes, we can do all those things outside of these walls, and that may be my point. We can do all of those things outside of the walls of the church. And so I'm not suggesting to you this morning that the church is a building. But I'm suggesting to you that the church is the gathering of people together. And that's where we need to start today. See, the issue is not going to church. Rather, the issue is having our hearts in the right spirit, our minds renewing our promises to Jesus. The issue is not going to church, but it's allowing God to transform us. The issue is not going on a mission. Rather, the issue is becoming a missionary and serving throughout our entire life in our communities, with our families, with our neighbors. The issue is not about being in the right place. It's about having the right heart, mind, soul, and having the strength to gather together. COVID really hurt that in a lot of our lives. I'm sitting here with Eric, and the thing that just keeps rolling through my head was, man, the times that we've shared together in groups, and I miss that. Last week, something happened that I wasn't intending to happen, but it did. Last week in service, for those of you online, I asked everyone to, at the end of service, to just kind of come before the cross and lay their burdens down, and then to leave kind of free. And what people did is I just wanted them to come down front and pause in front of the cross and then exit out the sides. And what happened was people began to come forward, and then everyone began to come forward, and then spontaneously people began talking with one another and praying for one another. They lingered. I just assumed people would come down front, pause, and then leave like we normally do every week. Because that's what happens every week when the sermon's over, or when you're done with this sermon, you'll turn off your TV, or you'll go on to do whatever you were going to do. And something different happened last week. Something not planned for, something very Spirit-led. People just spontaneously began talking to one another. Instead of turning around and getting out of church as fast as they could, they lingered. They pulled somebody aside and saw their struggle, and they were available for a few moments. They laughed, they cried, they gathered together, they were pursuing life together. You see, I think out of all the disciples, out of all the apostles, Peter knew this best. And if you read 1 Peter and 2 Peter, you'll see this play itself out. But I think Peter knew and understood what doing life together really meant, because he had to learn it firsthand. He had to learn the hard way. Peter was the guy that was all about himself, right? I mean, we see that ego, we see that pride, and Peter gets a bad rap sometimes, but at other times it's like, nope, Peter, you thought it was all about you. It's not about Peter at all. It was about the disciples. It was about the disciples and Jesus. It was about their community. It was about the women who were there with them. It was about all of them sharing the load and working together to eventually be the church, to eventually share the gospel. See, I think Peter knew this firsthand, because Jesus had to teach him. I mean, wasn't it Peter who said, I'll get out of the boat and I'll walk on water. Just, here I am, Lord. And Jesus had to remind him, Peter, keep your eyes on me. It's not about you. Peter was the guy who was going to cut the guy's ear, who did cut the guy's ear off in the garden. Remember that? How dare he do that? And Jesus had to softly remind Peter as he put the man's ear back on, it's not about you. It's about me and living like me, Peter. Peter said, I'll never leave you. And we go, yeah, man, way to go, Peter. You're super spiritual, super awesome. Until he leaves him 3 times. Peter said, I'm your guy, Jesus. I'll never abandon you. I'll never turn from you. And I'll always be with you. And Jesus had to remind him, Peter, get behind me. Over and over, Peter was taught the importance of community and gathering together and following Jesus. And I want us to be mindful of that today as we look at our scripture text. Matt Chandler said, stop going to church everywhere and start belonging to a church somewhere. And that's my call. That's really my heart for folks. And I'm going to say this to people at church on Sunday, and it scares me to death, again, to say a statement like that. But with the luxury of church everywhere, we sometimes find ourselves belonging to nothing. We can get church anywhere. You can find better preachers than me. You don't have to listen to Scottsburg Online, First Christian Church Online. I mean, here I am sitting in a room. There's much better options out there digitally. I'm not the greatest preacher, but I do care about you. And so I want us to take today and just pause for a moment. You see, Peter was talking to a group of people who had been scattered. They'd been scattered all over the world, and the church had been dispersed all over the world. And Peter is talking to people who were suffering because they're Christians. They're suffering because they're trying to follow Christ in a world that doesn't want them. And Peter knew that being scattered and isolated was not a good thing. It wasn't good for the health of the church, for the health of the people. And so he wrote 2 letters to this dispersed, isolated people group. And he really wanted them to do life together. I love what Aaron Brockett, the lead pastor at Traders Point, he said this about Peter. He said, Peter wants us to exchange making a statement about Jesus for making a difference for Jesus. Basically, it's not about the words we speak, it's about the life we live. And so I want us to not just talk about doing life together. I want us to feel the weight of what it looks like to actually do life together. The sacrifices it takes, the commitment it takes. We're so busy. We've got so many things. Are we really taking care of each other? The foundation that's set by Peter is this. In every relationship that you have, it should start on the foundation of being together in Christ. I need to just maybe take a step back. In our text today, 1 Peter chapter 3, Peter is talking he's talking to slaves, he's talking to wives and husbands, and then he talks to the church as a whole. And in all of this, his basic understanding of relationships is based upon gathering together, forming a community, mutually submitting to one another, and all of us being a part of the same thing, Christ. The foundation that's set by Peter is this: in every relationship that you have with other believers, now hear me, I'm talking about relationships with other Christ followers, not relationships with non-believers. These are relationships with brothers and sisters in Christ. In every relationship you have with other followers, you are equal partners in God's gift of new life. Listen to me. You are equal partners in God's gift of new life. When God grants us new life through Jesus, we're all together as equal partners. We're all in it together. We all have a seat at the table. No one is better or above the other. Every believer is one in Jesus Christ. Do we have different spiritual gifts? Absolutely yes. Do we have different responsibilities? Absolutely yes. But we're all united together in Christ. And I find this interesting because this is what Peter says. He says in the same way, and we'll get to this in a moment, in the same way, you husbands must give honor to your wives. Treat your wife with understanding as you live together. We understand as adults what Peter's talking about. As you live together, there's commitments that we make. And treat your wife with honor, understanding as you live together, as you, your physical and your spiritual, your sexual, all of the things that man and wife do together. Peter says she's weaker than you. You could force her to do anything you wanted. You could demand it. You're the stronger person. Peter says she is your equal partner in God's gift of life, of new life. She's not below you. She's not above you. Neither are you above her. You are equal partners, both mutually submitting to one another for the purpose of glorifying God in your life. Now, if we back up to 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 21, he's talking to slaves here, and he says, "For God called you to do good, even if it means suffering." Now, slavery in the first century church is not like what we think in America as slavery. It was very different, but yet it was very much the same. It was very different, but some similarities. And what I got to be careful here because I don't condone slavery whatsoever. And right now there's slavery going on that's around the world, and there is more slaves right now in the world than there have been ever in the world. Young women and young girls trafficked every day. But God makes this statement through the Bible, through Peter. God has called you to do good, even if it means suffering. Just as Christ suffered for you, he is your example and you must follow in his steps. So move beyond the idea of the context of slavery for just a moment. We all people are to serve one another by doing good, even if it means suffering. I am to treat my boss good, even if it means suffering. I am to treat my spouse good, even if it means suffering. Christ is my example, and I am to live my life according to his example. And how did he live his life? Alone? No. He traveled together with his disciples and with the women who were with him. They traveled together in a community, moving from one place to another, teaching people, loving them, doing miracles, and preparing the way for the cross. That's what the Gospels tell us. So Peter says we must follow in his steps. We must do the exact same thing that he did. Now, this one is the interesting one, I think, when Peter talks about wives. He changes it up just a little bit. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 1 and 2, in the same way, again, here's that language, in the same way. So these are all connected together. How are they connected together? We'll get to that in just a moment. But he says, you wives must accept the authority of your husbands. Even if some refuse to obey the good news, your godly lives will speak to them without any words. He's not talking about being authoritative, having control over your wife. He's already talked about being equal partners. So what's he talking about here? What are wives to do? We must notice, who is Peter talking to? He's talking about husbands who do not know the Lord. These are unbelieving husbands. And he's telling the wives, Christian wives, God-fearing wives, listen, what you need to do is live a godly life so that God can speak through you, even if your husband refuses to obey the good news. If your husband refuses to follow Jesus, don't be a thorn in his side. be one with him. Live a godly life, even in the presence of his unbelieving life. Live in such a way that he will see Jesus through you. You see, that's what it says, what Peter ends with. He says, these unbelieving husbands, they will be won over. Won over to what? Jesus. How will they be won over? Listen to this. By observing your pure and relevant lives. Peter's point in all of this, with slaves, with husbands, with wives, with all Christians, Peter's point is this: live your life in such a way that the unbelievers around you, whether they be your master or your husband or your wife or your children or your neighbor, will be won over to the gospel. Not because of the words you speak to them, not because of the authority over top of them, but because you're living like Jesus with them. And what I've noticed in my life is when I am living and doing life with other people, I am able to have questions and share my doubts without judgment. I'm able to speak freely and openly about my struggles. Why? Because we've built a relationship that is more than just Sunday morning. We've built a relationship that takes sacrifice and commitment. And we all give a little to gain a lot. So I think when Peter says these words, finally, all of you listen. All of you should be of one mind. And he gives us 7 or 8 things here. He says, be of one mind. Whether you're close together or far apart, we should all have the mind of Jesus. We should all have the attitude of Christ. Be of one mind. He says, 2, sympathize with each other. When people gather together, there will be different circumstances, there will be different issues, different backgrounds and baggage. But when we come together, we feel each other's issues. We listen, we give space, we care. We're all walking in each other's shoes for a moment. In order to do that, in order to walk in someone else's shoes, you have to take some time to get to know them. Spend some time with them, hear their story, sit with them in their situation. That's what pursuing life is all about. Sympathize with each other. Listen, walk in their shoes. Peter goes on, he says, love each other as brothers and sisters. Peter knows this is vital. Why like brothers and sisters? Because if you've got a brother or sister, you know that you don't always get along. But at the end of the day, you will be there for them. Growing up, I heard people say about my family, if you fight one of them, you're going to have to fight all of them. And that's a bond that goes just beyond an acquaintance on Sunday morning. It's a family bond. It's a bond of blood. And you and I have a bond of blood as well. We have been joined together in the blood of Christ. And we are to love each other as brothers and sisters. And we are to take that love and care for one another. And then take that love and go out and help someone else find Jesus. But we can't do that when it's all about us. We can't do that if we're arrogant and egotistical and proud like Peter. We have to be the changed Peter. We have to be the Peter that is feeding sheep. Not the Peter that's trying to cut off an ear or run away or show off or all of these things. Because Peter says, be tenderhearted. Keep a humble attitude. Peter just didn't pull that out of the air. Peter had to learn that. And once he learned it, he realized it was a secret to being together. Don't repay evil for evil. Don't retaliate with insults when people insult you. Instead, pay them back with a blessing. One of the greatest blessings you can ever be with somebody is to invite them to your table. Invite them into your group and say, hey, I want you to be a part of our group. Peter echoes Psalm 34, and he says, "For the scriptures say, if you want to enjoy life and see many happy days, keep your tongue from speaking evil, keep your lips from telling lies, turn away from evil and do good, search for peace, work hard to maintain it. The eyes of the Lord watch over those who do right. His ears are open to those who in their prayers, but the Lord turns his face from those who do evil." If you want to enjoy a happy life, see many happy days, you can't do that by being alone. Peter knows all of this is involved in community. And I will remind you, in Acts, it's all about the community. The church is the community. They ate together and prayed together and took the Lord's Supper together. They worshiped together. They learned together. Hebrews says, don't forget meeting together because it's valuable. And again, I'll remind you what Aaron Brockett said. Peter wants us to exchange words and statements about Jesus for making a difference for Jesus. Maybe today you just need to stop by a family member's house and just say, hey. Maybe today you need to invite someone out for breakfast, if it's early enough, or lunch, or dinner. Maybe you need to go sit on a porch with a friend who's struggling, just listen. Maybe you just need to take a walk through your neighborhood and pray for those you come in contact with, or just pray for the houses that you pass. Maybe you need to fix someone a meal, write someone a card, send someone a text. Just maybe you could do something helpful and nice for someone who needs an extra hand today, this week. And so I'll remind you and close with this. Bill Hybels once said, church is not what you do. Church is who you are. Church is the human outworking of the person of Jesus Christ. He says, let's not go to church. Let's be the church. Let's go do what Jesus did. Let's go love people the way Jesus loved people. And let's truly figure out how you and I can pursue life together. Let's be the church today. Go do something. Have a great week. See you next time.